Excuse me everyone, could I have your attention please? I'd just like to welcome everybody to this amazing event, both in the Newcastle Sport Parachute Club and skydiving in Australia as well. 50 years, it's been a long time. It's been a load of things happen through the club over those years as well. If you look around, there's people from early days, founding members, people right through from all decades up until now. And there's also some future members as well, you see, being pushed around. We also have a special guest tonight. We have Sue Moore, who's the Singleton Mayor. If you'd like to stand up, please, Sue. Welcome. I won't take too much of your time up, but I've just got a couple of people I'd like to thank. Yeah. Now, on a real note, there is a lot of people that need thanking for this happening the way it has been now. I'd like to thank Martin and Peter and Kath Oates for all the work that they've done behind the scenes to get this together. And on the drop zone side of things, Gatsby for the work that he's done, making it is now. There's a load of people that have had input into where we are now. I don't want to name all the people in case I do forget somebody. But welcome and have a good night. I'd like to hand you over to Dean Mustard, who's our MC. Oh, sorry. Bit ahead of myself. I'd like people to charge their glass, please.
This is smooth.
Okay, look at the person on your right and congratulate him to getting us to where we are now. Nspc's 50th. Here you go, dude. Oh, toasted.
You've toasted?
Toasted.
A toast to Elderslie, ladies and gentlemen. Elderslie! Elderslie, this is your night. This is your celebration. This is your part of history. You cannot buy what we have. I had all this stuff worked out tonight that I was going to say, but when you look around the room, what can you say? It's full of legends and it's full of self-proclaimed legends. If you could bottle up everybody's story, we'd be here forever. It'd be longer than listening to one of JT's surfing stories. Ladies and gentlemen, Elderslie is a place we can come and fall in love, have children. If anyone wants to have any children with me, I'm single. It's a place of second-generation skydivers. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a gentleman who jumps with us who is 76 years young, who was told by a drop zone not too far from here, just across the road, if anyone wants to go there, probably don't, that he was too old to skydive. 76 is not old. 76 is nearly 1,000 skydives. 76 is wingsuit jumps. 76 is base jumps. 76 is what, to me, Elderslie is all about. Tonight I hope to take you on a journey of some past, some present skydivers, some stories, a whole heap of bullshit. Because to me it's your right as an Australian skydiver to tell the untruth about the truth and to stretch it as far as you can. You got 100 jumps? Yeah, I've got 200. You got 500? I've got 1,000. You got 5,000? Yeah, well, what it used to be back in the day was when I was young. When we used to jump around, there's heaps of them here. There's guys here that jump belly-mounted reserves. And these days, they look like they've got belly-mounted reserves. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope to take you on a journey, good, bad, and all indifferent. Our first guest has got a CV longer than the east coast of Australia. He was on the first two-way formation in Australia. He was on the first night skydive in Australia. If anyone knows much about skydiving, I suppose you will. His E licence is number 1. His F licence is number 1. He was on the world's first four-way formation. I don't know if they built anything, but they were on it. They're probably at the bar now with their belly mounted reserves going, oh, how's that in 1963? It was awesome. Our first guest for this night, ladies and gentlemen, the great, the brilliant, the absolutely Andy Keech, ladies and gentlemen. Andy is one of 2 pilots since the Wright brothers that has set a world record for speed, for distance, for altitude. Andy, did we pay your flight to get here or did you pay your own? Because we're broke. We want our plane back.
Some wide for
Andy Keech, ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Well, you like me. You really like me. Life is fun. So it's an honour and a pleasure to be here tonight to speak at this very special event. It's also been an education. It's compelled me to look back into memories that I'd long forgotten and never would have been resurrected unless I was tasked with looking into what's happened between the old days and now. I'm also currently in the middle of some jet lag and I'm refamiliarised with short-term memory, which puts me in mind of the recent letter I had from the Alzheimer's Society, and I thought I should make a contribution to these people. And so I opened the envelope and it said, thank you for your what's the word? For your generous donation. So anyway, the subjects tonight are progress and why we are the way we are. But first I'd like to introduce members from the past, from the first generation of the club. Beryl Blakemore, Barbara Lewis. Come on, stand up, lady. Let's see who you are. Okay, Cole King. Alan J. Don McKern. Yeah, Don. Yeah, Don's here. Is Robin Chipperfield. We thought Robin would be here. Tony Griffiths. Yeah, Tony. Hey, Tony. Stand up. And John Mahaffey. Okay, thank you. The performance beginning of the club is shown in this picture. There were 12 clubs at the time, and half the components of the Australian team were from this club. The two of the women, Beryl and Barbara and Cole and myself. So that was 50% of the team, and Alan was the team manager. Don McKern came away with this, and what that did was essentially take away the centre of the club. Now, the sharpest point of our spear was Cole King. Cole King was the first Australian to be medalled at a world meet, and this led to a tradition of outstanding teams that Australia provided, and all of them had members of this club on board. When you think of joint effort, Prometheus with Chris Bramall's team, Reggie Didge and It'll Happen, run by barn back, accelerator and light speed. These are all outstanding teams, they all had members from this club. This photograph is a picture from January 1964, before the team left for overseas. A month before, the Golden Knights had set the baton pass record at 6 from 30,000 feet. I don't think they'd laugh at that now. But we were only capable of getting to 12,000 feet, and 3 of our club members, Beryl, Cole and myself, and Claude Gillard, who's also here. This was a case of collaboration between different clubs, and this has been a tradition which is shown in those previously mentioned outstanding Australian teams. We aren't closeted to only work with ourselves, we work with the best anywhere. But this was an example. We were somewhere between smoke signals and semaphore as far as communication and email over here. In those days, I wrote the instructions for everybody on 2 sheets of paper in longhand and put them in envelopes and mailed it to them. So they would see their exit order, they would know what they would see when they left the aircraft, they'd know which order they would fly together. So that was the way we handled communications in those times. Is Len Hunter here? He's the young guy here. I think he was a Victorian. Is that right, Claude? Yep.
He passed away last year.
Oh, did he? Shame. Bill Malloy was killed in a car accident. So we've lost 2 of them already. This is my fish out of luck picture. That was the 4-way. I'm the only guy who's facing the wrong direction. Jerry Jackson's here tonight. Jerry is our esteemed scientist and engineer and record holder. He was on the 300-man formation, and this is a few minutes after he had set the transcontinental speed record piston-engined aircraft about 3 months ago. So he's one of the very few individuals in the world that have world records in 2 completely different branches of aviation. He's come all the way from San Diego. He'll be here for today and tomorrow. But he likes to party, so competition has been the point of our spear. Now, the stability of the spear lies in the strength of the shaft. Pat Carl was such an enormous surprise. At the time we left, we thought the club would implode because the mainstays had all gone overseas on this world group. He's the man that saved the day in that he did it in extraordinary fashion. Within a year, he had arranged the purchase of a Dragon aircraft, and this is the first club that ever owned its own aircraft. And he engineered an in-flight door which saved 10% of all that weight. It allowed you to carry more loads. This aircraft flew for 4 years and was eventually replaced by a Cessna 180, CDJ, matter of fact. So the club stands on the shoulders of giants, and there's no giant taller than Patrick. So this is the aircraft. This is the only picture. This is the only picture I could get of CDJ, but you're going to have to ride with it. I don't know what's the story about the white helmet on the right. What's going on? Anyway, the club was fairly forcefully shifted out of here. It was given 24 hours to leave the drop zone, and so Pat was the guy that set up Elderslie. The reason you're at Elderslie is due to Patrick. And Pat's son, this is Pat's son, Timothy, and Pat was going to be here tonight. He followed in his father's footsteps. He was a long-time skydiver. He jumped with Kim, matter of fact. Kim Hardwick. I got an email from him today, and he said 15 years ago I jumped with Kim Hardwick, and to say hello to her. Patrick's pilot in the World Australian Air Force, and he's doing Anzac Day flybys over the weekend, and so he wasn't able to come. There are others that also have carried the load for the club, and I'd like to recognise some are here tonight. Now, I'd like to call Kim Hardwick Ford, the outstanding people that I know of. Those who stood on Patrick's shoulders were Kim. I've got Kim A. She was our first female chief instructor. She was a well-known competitor, and also she's alphabetically first on the list. So I'll call Kim up. But the other names are George Jennison, Catherine Oates, Martin Perrins, Marty Rader. Is Marty here? Oh, sorry to hear that. And Jas Shennan. Now, as other names are known, they'll be added to the list, but we have. So anyway, this is the trophy from the first generation to the current people. Wonderful. We'll get it straight back. We'll straighten names out later.
You want me to say anything now, or?
If you like.
Thanks, Andy. This is beautiful, and so wonderful to see everybody. And I completely agree with your sentiment. We stand on the shoulders of giants, and a lot of you are here. And then there'll be more that'll be standing on ours later.
Well done. Well done. Now, the two most asked questions that jumpers get are, how many jumps do you have? And that's just normal curiosity. But the other one is, why would you jump out of perfectly good aircraft? And they say that as if it's original to them and we've never heard it before. But as against jumping out of a perfectly bad aircraft, I know two guys that have jumped out of perfectly bad aircraft. And when you do that, you can get one of the, the symbol is a silkworm. You wear it as a little tie pin. And they come in two forms. One has green eyes, that's for non-combat bailouts. And a friend of mine had the wing come off his glider, and he went into a high G spiral and had to clamber out the side to save his life. The other one is the fellow who owns this. It's a man called Ken Wallace in England. He's 94. And he was flying a bomber back from Europe, and he flew into fog. It was at night. He made 6 approaches on the runway, and his fuel tanks were showing empty. He said, I remember clearly how lucky I was to discover the white webbing folded in the back of the May's flotation suit. It had released and was draped over my seat and was caught under the seat raising handle. All the stuff's attached in. So I gathered the whole lot up in my arms and flung myself out the front hatch. When I pulled the ripcord, it gave me a violent jerk in a very sensitive area. 26 years later, I was operated on for a lump that had started after that painful opening. After recovering from the anaesthetic, the surgeon said, I thought you might be in the Guinness Book of Records for the only man with 3. Now, if anything marks our 50 years, it's that logo. That canopy is a C9 canopy, and I own 3 of them, and the club bought a bunch when we first started. The C9 canopy was manufactured in huge numbers during the Korean War in the early 50s. They thought it might trigger World War III, so they sent out contracts to make thousands of these. And they made enough to fill 7 hangars out in the desert, right up to the rafters. And the war never happened, so they let them sit there till the shelf life expired. And that was towards the end of the 50s. And so that allowed common jumpers us and all those Americans and other people to buy parachutes at a fairly reasonable rate. So it was dreadful. It was a high price. It had a high sink rate. If you cut modifications in it, it came down faster. So it was not a very good performing canopy at all, but its significance was the fact that it allowed us to make jumps and to get started with the club. Now this is the Anglo-Saxon view of Australian history from the First Fleet to now. That's some people see that as funny and others. Anyway, the interesting thing to me was that within 10 years, Garnerin made the first parachute jump. These guys walked around with funny hats and had sailboats and all this sort of stuff, and here this guy's gone and made a parachute jump. Then there was an Australian made one 10 years before the Wright brothers first flew powered flight. This was a watchmaker down in Castlereagh Street, Sydney, made that from a balloon apparently. But and between there and when the parachuting started as an ongoing thing, there were military activity during World War II, but it all fizzled and faded. But this was around the flashpoint. And so the next slide covers that area of history. Now the top line shows shows rate of progress of the jumpers themselves, relative work. It's a logarithmic increase here from 2 men in 1961, I think it was, we did that. And then it went to 10, 30, and all the way up to 400 man by now. Now ripcords we found were quite dangerous. When sport parachuting used ripcords, we use them 100,000 times a year, whereas survival parachuters use them so rarely that their floors were not above the radar. But ripcords had all kind of nasty ways of killing people. And so hand deploy came out about 1970, and then there's been ongoing miniaturization of this tiny equipment that you wear today. I tell you, we'd have been very envious. We wouldn't have even believed how small equipment got. But the decade of the golden age of canopies was in that first decade from 1960 to 1970. Went from flat round canopies to pulled apex, round ones to ram airs. Now, this is a picture of the first tandem jump. This is Mike Barber, and this was his stepson. He had cerebral palsy, and he worshipped his dad, and his dad made an extra harness so he could take this little guy on a jump. And the reason this photograph was taken from this aspect was so he couldn't be identified, because the Parachute Association and the FAA would have come down on him for making a hazardous and dangerous parachute jump. Yet the backbone of commercial parachuting is essentially tandem jumping. There are 300,000 people in America make a tandem jump every year. That's 10 times the population of the regular jumpers. So it's very significant. And so rules that are made by people that don't do it should be looked at carefully. There were canopies that fell by the way. Darwinism applied to parachutes. That's a Barry sail wing. I jumped that one time. It has some unexpected high-speed characteristics, but had some nasty ones that weren't worth living with. Now, man flight started in 1903 with the Wright brothers, and it took 44 years to get from there to the first rocket-propelled supersonic flight by Chuck Yeager in 1947. And so that's less than the time our club's been in existence. Now, in our case, we have a wide range of capabilities. We fly face down, feet down, head down, and upside down. We fly aerobatics, we fly in connected formations larger than any of the animals, and we fly faster. Ours is the only form of human flight that does not fly with contractions. We fly with our bodies. It is visceral, it is sensual, and it's joyful. There's some things that haven't changed in 50 years. This year, August, will be the 50th anniversary of the longest parachute jump, 102,000 feet by Kittinger back 50 years ago. Now, three other jumpers that I know of have gone above the Armstrong line. The Armstrong line is 64,000 feet, and that's where blood boils. And 2 of them had pressure suit failures. So this is a very dangerous area. It has not been revisited. We expect a Hungarian by the name of Balkan to have a shot at it this year. But the limits currently are 20,000 feet with the common form of supplemental oxygen. Once you go above 25,000 feet, you need pressure oxygen, which is a lot more expensive and a lot more difficult to deal with. Above 37,000 feet, you need a pressure suit. So it looks as though it will be ceilinged at 20,000 feet. So that's the way it's going to be for the sport for a long time, I'd expect. Now this was the first CRW diamond. It was in, yeah, we've got some relative CRW people here. Oh, we do? Oh, you got world champions. Fantastic. Here we go. Women. Now again. I found with my experience, and it was fairly rare, that women seem to be better people to jump with. I had a whole weekend where I was the only guy in a DC3 with 30 odd women setting a large formation, and you could I was carrying cameras, and I found that their voices are pitched about an octave above men's, and so I could hear them over the engine. You know, when you fly with guys, no one talks because you know no one hears you. But when you fly with women, there's all these conversations back and forth. Anyway, the most memorable one was with this group of ladies, and it was toward mid-afternoon, and there was quite a brisk wind coming in, and the exit point was 1.5 miles off the drop zone, and so the glide slope was fairly long and steep. And on this particular jump, I dumped opening height. I had a bag lock malfunction. You know, I looked up at that "please be nice to me" kind of look, and then went away with cutting away from the main and going onto my reserve. By then I'd fallen way below the glide slope. There's no way I could get back to the airfield. So I orbited over the town and looking for the biggest backyard I could find, little realising that 10 of the women broke off from their going back to the airport to keep a mother hen look on me. And I flew down, like guys don't do this. And I flew down into this backyard and I landed, and there were 5 old codgers who are about 10 years younger than I am now. And they had a barbecue going, they had these sausages cooking, and about 40 seconds after I hit the backyard, 10 of these young ladies between 22 and 28 all landed. There was like manna from heaven. And these guys, they were going to put more sausages on it. But the drop zone sent the drop zone bus around and sort of put an end to things. What to do? But anyway, getting further on to the women thing, back in the old days, gynophobia in Australia 50 years ago was very hale and hearty, and it was backed by the government. A woman in public service, if she was overseas, the day she married was the end of her permanent professional standing. She would have to pay her own way back for home leave. I mean, that was the way the government was. And so military clubs and military schools did not encourage women at all. However, our club was a civilian club and we were completely open. We went on, if you can do the job, you get the job. And this photograph shows the 2 clubs, Beryl and Barbara from our club, and Susie, who's here, Susie Brown, and Kathy Burrow was from the South Australian Club. And these 2 clubs were the most distant from each other, yet there was this bond. We would visit them and they would visit. It was nothing deliberate, it was just that we seemed to have the same mindset. And so, as a result, the whole women contingent came from those two clubs. Yeah. It's easy. There you go. Now, overcompensation is a fact of life. The bottom shot is the largest all-male formation, 122 male. The largest female one is 181. There were 8 Australian women on that effort, and the average age of these women was 37, and the average number of jumps was 5,000. It's just enough. 5,000 is 10 jumps a week for a decade. I mean, that is a lot of very serious jumping. So they're hardcore and they can stand on their own. Now, Australian women are winning wingsuit races in Norway. I had no idea. But, so that's all part of this preparation for this. I got to learn all sorts of things. Now, of course, the largest formations, there's a 400 way, of course, are mixed gender. So we get on better when we work together. The thing that got my attention was all these photographers. They're all in position. When I was jumping, photographers were sort of considered in the road. You put them down the back of the lift. They're undisciplined. But the photographers today are really top notch. Now, these are the two main generations of cameras. This is the second generation. These are the third generation, where the cameras are bought, the helmets are bought off the shelf, and you can buy these tiny little digital cameras which show the results as soon as you land. But these ones had emulsion film. All the mounts had to be made by hand. They're all different. They're all customised. But the first generation, no one remembers those except me because I had so many bad experiences with them. They were clockwork driven. You wound them up like a clock. It had a spring. And I bounced one right off the airfield over here one day. So the modern day pioneers of flying wingsuits. And we had dreamed of the idea back in the old days. We knew of Leo Valentin that flew with the balsa-made wings. He would leave the aircraft and he'd open these balsa wings and he had great L over Ds. He'd glide all over the place. But this came out of nowhere to us, and it came too late. For us, anyway. I'd have loved to have done that. So the worst that can happen is aiming low. And this club has always aimed high. One thing that makes it possible to be an optimist is to have a contingency plan for when things go wrong. And they will, and they do, and they have. And that's Murphy's Law. Now, it applies to the timid, the innocent, the sedentary, the clueless, as well as the bold. It applies to everybody. Now, in a typical year in America, 650 people die choking on food. 350 drown in bathtubs. Of those who die, 9 out of 10 die in bed. Now, 4,500 die in motorcycle accidents. And one was Pete Conrad, the third man to walk on the moon. It took a while to die, and among his warmest thoughts would have been, I've done it all. And in this room are similarly minded people who are working to have a full life, much as he did. And all of them have come up against brick walls. Now, brick walls are not to stop us. Brick walls are to show us how badly we want something. Brick walls are to stop those who don't want things badly enough. They're for other people. So what lies behind us and what lies before us are small things. It's what lies within us. Musto?